Yo, stop acting light skin.
Welcome everyone to the am I allowed to say this? Sure? Okay. The Light Skinned Opinion Podcast with your host, author, and culture commentator Chris Maddox, blogger and overall asshole Alf954. And there's no way I'm saying this. It's offensive. Sure this is okay? Fine. And our dark-skinned producer, Parrish Thompson. What do we have today, boys? I mean, guys, not boys, because... Oh, fuck it.
Yo, welcome to the... Hello, welcome to the Light Skin Opinions Podcast. I am your host, Christopher Maddox. We doing something new for y'all tonight, man. And the situations around the world kind of demand that we do something new and we do something different. As you can see, I got my two partners here with me at Alf954. Alf, say what's up to the people, man.
Sac passe.
Boy, I know you glad they let folk get haircuts, man, before we had to go live.
We would have had to put the Scully on. It was looking rough. Y'all seen it.
And you see him down there to the bottom, and I promise that's a complete accident. We ain't put him there. Is my good friend, the dark-skinned producer, Parrish Thompson. What's going on, Pete?
What up?
So, fellas, it's good to see y'all tonight. And we decided to do this to go live, something we haven't done before with our podcast, primarily because the situation demands it. We find ourselves at a point in life where I could not have predicted we would be at this point when we were coming up out in high school and everything. We're at a point where we could be at a tipping in the country. Obviously, we're referring to the riots around the nation, catalyzed by the callous murdering of George Floyd in the street. So we're going to give y'all an experience here. If you're not familiar with our podcast, if you don't follow us, if you don't listen to us, this is your first time being introduced to the Light Skin Opinions cast. We're going to give you some just unabashed opinions, conversations. We will agree, we will disagree. And our first topic for tonight, we're going to start first with what do you guys think is the root cause? What is it that, because while we're here experiencing this part right here, we know that this started a while ago. So I don't know how far back y'all want to go. Alf, I'm gonna let you start. But root causes, your opinion on how you think we get to this point right now, where I think tonight we have 37 cities in the country who have called out their National Guard. Alf, what do you think?
I mean, we can go back to the plantation, but I don't think we have enough time tonight to go through every socio-economic disparity throughout the history, starting with slavery and the colonization of Africa. But let's go back to something that was like the catalyst of our lives. The first time we've really seen what NWA then was talking about, the things that we knew as kids that our parents taught us, that you have to deal with police in a certain way because as a black man, you are always considered the aggressor coming in every situation. You are inherently dangerous because of the color of your skin. So we were always taught, you got to be real easy with the police because they could haul off and whoop your ass at any time. You'll go to jail on them charges. Like we knew how that would work. So the first time we really seen anything happen with it was Rodney King beatings. It's like the first time the whole nation stood up and took notice, like, yo, they wasn't lying. They wasn't playing around. Because before Rodney King, everybody believed that police report. And I would like for everybody to, if nothing, you don't take anything else from what's going on right now, scrutinize every police report you ever read. When they say according to police reports, please, because before when they used to shoot us, beat us, leave us dead in the street, they said we was going for the gun. That was always it. And Dave Chappelle,
or like the Dave Chappelle joke, sprinkle a little crack on it.
All right, so they would do that, and they would get away with it because there was no footage.
But I understand that part, Alf, and I got you. I think we know that part. But what I want to understand, when I look at this, or what are the root causes? I have to go a little bit. I have to go before that, because we've seen this animosity and this enmity long time. Civil rights movement, we saw it. When you let dogs loose on somebody, that's a special type of you really feel a way. You know what I'm saying? When you set a dog loose on somebody, And so I want to know, and what I think at least, and I'm gonna let you go, Parrish. I just want to kind of set it up this way. I think that animosity is something that is bred into a police officer, or it's either because the type of person that is drawn to that job sometimes has a predilection towards violence and stuff. You know what I'm saying? People, go ahead and give us your opinion on that, Parrish.
I mean, well, it's a complex answer, like y'all said. If I think that the reason why people just burning buildings down right now is just, I think they're just tired. You know what I mean? Like everything, there's no way you can argue that this guy should have died. You know what I mean? Like there's no way. So there's just, you take that and then you put on what happened. What was it, 2 weeks ago with Ahmed Aubrey? So they happened too close together. It's
been four of them.
Right. With just back
the young lady who gets shot in her house. They made a mistake on a bad warrant. Y'all have seen that joke. I've seen this joke going around, and it's one of the reasons why Chris Rock is a legend. There's just some jobs that cannot have bad apples. Y'all seen that joke with him?
Yeah.
People when they say, "Oh, well, it's the police." Hey, it's just some people. We just got a couple bad apples.
Exactly.
There's just some jobs where you can't be a bad apple. Shooting somebody in the house, serving a warrant for somebody who don't live in that house. That's like 4 compounded mistakes all on top.
Miles away. The house is miles away.
You understand? So, but to get to the point where you actually shoot somebody in that house, to me, it says that you went into the house with malintent in the first place. You understand what I'm saying?
And Izzy Gutierrez said this on Twitter today. Let's stop with that bad apples. Let's talk about bad roots. If you want to talk about plants or whatever, plant life. You know what I'm saying? Let's talk about the fact that it comes from bad roots. Like you said, it's a complex situation, right? It's how just the overall image of Black men and Black women, and all minorities, but right now we're focusing on African American Black men and Black women, how they are perceived, how they are portrayed. I mean, if we want to go way back in the day, we've always been dehumanized. We've always been animals. We've always been aggressive. We've always been, from the darkest, deepest parts of African jungles, and just these mysterious, super aggressive. Our women are hypersexualized. So we are always. So you go into all these things with preconceived notions, and then, like you said, there are certain people that are attracted to the policing profession, and then after all that, you just look at policing in America. So when people say F the police, right? Or when people say all cops are bad, or when people say, when people put these blanket statements over the police, I want people to understand it's not talking about every individual cop. I have police officer friends. I have Black friends who are police officers. They're not racist. We all do. But that's policing in America is racist.
That's the nuance of it. When people say F the police, that don't mean that if I get robbed, I ain't about to call the police. When people say F the police, that don't mean that, if my little sister get roughed up, and I can't get my hands on them, I'm not calling the police to go and do it. What F the police means is what I think is the reason why peaceful protests devolve into riots. Okay. The reason why people were protesting initially is primarily because they didn't charge them. You wouldn't have had any problem if you didn't charge them.
Exactly.
What escalate if you would have arrested them and charged them immediately, you wouldn't have had a problem. But when you did not arrest him and you did not charge him, and then they came out with the press conference, and the press conference said, as of right now, we don't have enough to charge this man. and you telling this to a community of people who just watched a man die on television, and you telling me you don't have enough. At that point, if you're going to tell me that's not enough to tell that this is illegal, you cannot then tell me don't throw this garbage can through this window.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? If the laws, if the rules don't mean anything, they don't mean anything. So the reason why a peaceful protest, the protest occurred, and they put the third degree, and all that kind of stuff only after people came out and made a thing of it. So I think what the reason why a peaceful protest then becomes a riot is because people cannot stand the idea that the reality of the idea that the system doesn't work the way it's supposed to. And if the system does not work the way it's supposed to, why it has to work for me? If you can put your knee on a man's neck and kill him in the street, police or not, why can't I bust a window in Target and grab me a Ninja 300 blender that I need for my new Herbalife program? Why I can't?
You need some weird stuff, bro. But I agree with you completely with that.
It's like what you're saying is, if there's lawlessness, let the lawlessness extend to the people. And one thing I think people need to understand about the riots, like when somebody's throwing a trash can through a window, they're not like, this will change legislation.
No,
like they're not thinking about like the ramifications, the economic ramifications of stealing the TV out this month. You know what I mean? That's not what they're trying to do. What they're trying to do is show you they are hurt, they are in pain, or they're just expressing an anger that has been built up for so long.
I don't even think it's that, because I don't think that man who when I see the folk running up out of Gucci with arms full of clothes, they're not running out of Gucci because they like, oh my gosh, I'm hurt because this is happening, and now I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna flip all these clothes I'm just boosted. That's not what's happening. What's happening is, if you can kill a man in the street, I can grab these clothes. This is a world of equivalencies, and Black people are tired of having to be on the bottom end of the equivalency.
I think it's both. I think it's
if you're robbing a Gucci store, you ain't looting a Gucci store because you're hurt. Now, maybe if you took a hammer, there is a pain behind that. Yes, I agree. But if you bust up a Target, and then when I asked you why you bust up the Target, you said because Target is a symbol of Minneapolis because their headquarters is here, and yada yada yada. Then yes, then hell yeah, you an old philosophical ass looter at that. But
I was gonna let the Gucci looters off as just people that wanted to get Gucci. I was talking more about
but we got
like the people that burn out the police station, like the people that burn out the police station. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like they're out there doing something different than if I'm out there getting Gucci.
Burning out a police station is symbolism.
Yeah,
that was symbolic.
Well, I mean, maybe you have to make a distinction between looting and rioting. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the people that break the glass and break the door down, they were in pain. The people that went in and got them a TV, they were opportunistic. You know what I mean? Yeah. They were like, well, the door broken anyway, shit.
But I think that is a powerful point here that gets lost when people have this conversation. And it is the reason why, if you really want to sell to your police why they can't do stuff like that, it's because when you put your knee on a man's neck and kill him in the street, it sends a message that the law and the rules do not matter. You know what I'm saying? You cannot tell people, oh yeah, you watched them die, but hey, I gotta do some research first. You watched them die. You heard them cry out. We all did, but hold on a second. I gotta do a little research. You can't tell me that. When if my brother was in the same situation, his ass would go to jail at night, and I wouldn't see that nigga again till court started. You know what I'm saying? Yep. You can't tell us that, and then tell me, and now I also cannot go bust off in this Louis. You know how much money I'm finna get when I flip this Louis this week? But now the other part of this, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's and I hate to compare it to a parenting situation, but it's an authority figure, and then a civilian, or if you want to talk about a parent and a child, right? You sit there, you preach all this shit all day, every day. And just like you're saying, murder is wrong. This is wrong. That's wrong. But then we see you do it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I started doing drugs because I saw you doing drugs. Remember that old commercial? Like, yeah. Why? I started smoking pot because you were smoking pot, Dad. You're a bad influence. I'm breaking in this window because you killing us. So what the fuck? The law don't matter anymore.
The law don't matter anymore. And that's what I don't like about it, because it shifts all the responsible for maintaining, like, I don't know what the opposite of anarchy of maintaining order. It puts really all of the burden of maintaining order is on the citizenry then at that point, because and then now you see it with the police, and that was going to be one of our topics, and I hope I'm not going out of order, is when you see the police now out in the street, and I'm looking at some of these videos, and I'm like, sir, you there's malice in you. And I'm talking about, this is a policeman who might not even be in Minneapolis. Maybe if you was a policeman in Minneapolis, I don't agree, but I understand why you out here, you know what I'm saying, throwing bows and shit. But if you were a policeman in San Antonio, if you're a policeman, I just watched one in Santa Monica, California. Why you so mad in Santa Monica, California? What you so upset about? And because the only way the police understand how is to just use force.
Yeah.
But then they tell us to use tact, and people are tired of that imbalance.
I think you have a point there. Like, you look at you've seen some instances, like they showed Flint, Michigan. The police chief took off his helmet, put his baton down, and said, "What do you want me to do?" And they said, "Walk with us." And he walked with them. You know what I'm saying? And peaceful. Everything was fine. But what happens is, I feel like when we talked about the kind of people that are attracted to the position, it's like they get a little bit of pushback on their authority. Their first reaction is to push back even harder. And like, instead of listening to what people are telling you, they're screaming in your face. But can you at least listen to what they're screaming? But you're not even listening. You're just you all riled up. I don't know that you're on roids. I don't know what's wrong with them. They a little angry. I don't know what's wrong. And they want to push back off grip.
And that's one of the things that I feel like is the difference. That I ain't never been in no police academy, but I've seen the movies. Boom, boom, psh, you know. And
terrible joke. Parrish, if we were on the podcast, Parrish would have cut that out.
Yeah, I'd have cut that out. It might not make
the cut it now, homie. We live. But
the dangers of being live.
Policemen are not soldiers. When soldiers go into battle overseas, very rarely are soldiers charged with international war crimes. It's the men who gave the orders, because it's understood in a military situation that soldiers have they have to follow orders. There's very little gray area. When you are a policeman, particularly community policing, you need so much levels of nuance that it cannot just be black or white. When you are, it cannot be, hey, I'm just following orders. It has to be like what you just described. You cannot see yourself as the man in the kennel who keep in order. You can't see yourself as the behavior specialist at the schoolhouse who got a sub one day, and so I'm in the classroom just, you know. You have to be able to build a rapport with people. You have to be able to understand when is it necessary. And I don't see enough cops who have that gift of nuance. You know what I mean?
But it's not. And then we talk about de-escalation all the time, right? Where was the de-escalation when George Floyd was on the ground? It was already de-escalated. Now you have an agitated crowd, and you're making it worse. How many times have we seen in these videos? You have agitated crowds, and you drive an SUV through them. You have an agitated crowd they've not broken a single law, and you throw tear gas into the crowd. Then now you want to talk about riots and looting. There was a
video of the policeman just full on, you know,
hit that body.
Yeah, he hit this woman like he was hitting a sled at football practice. Wow, Little chick flies. Woo!
Hit her head on the ground.
Hit her head on the ground.
Might had to go to the hospital.
Now
they got the.
Now, if I watch you do that, and then we a block down the road and some other stuff is popping off, and you trying to tell me to follow some type of order, how can you communicate that to me? How can you tell me to follow some type of order when you out here? You remember, Alphonse, in high school, and maybe you too, Parrish, that there was always one security guard in every high school who everybody knew. If there was a fight going on and you heard XYZ is coming, you knew to disperse, because his way, you knew it. His way of breaking up the fight, first of all, getting through the crowd, he bowing you, he shoving folk, and once he gets to the crowd, if it's your back that's to him, you going to the sky, my friend. Boom. Everybody knew. Yeah. But the result, you know what I'm saying? So we all knew. And so I see some of these police, and I'm like, oh, it's a lot of them like that. Mm-hmm. Like now that it's time to get out here in these streets and really show your skill as a policeman, your only skill is, you know what I'm saying? Let me hit the sled on a woman.
But they a lot of the people in the comments are making the right comments, that the problem is they don't have training. They're not trained properly in de-escalation.
I was gonna say there's two. My bad, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
There's two different situations that we're kind of talking about. You're talking about police training, and then you're talking about reaction to what an officer already did. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the officer, he has to be dealt with separately. He has to be dealt with separately. Something white. He has to be dealt with something. So he has to be dealt with
something
separately.
Saxon.
He has to be dealt with differently and separately than the rest of the police force moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. And it's you want to talk about how to prevent this from going forward, and then when it does happen, let justice be served. And that's all people are really even asking for. I mean, we're going to talk a little bit later about other things that we would like to see, like beyond that. When you start talking about defunding some of these police departments, the militarization of the police force, like there's other things. But at the very basis of what we're asking for is teach them how not to kill a man, and then also when they kill a man, let there be actual consequences, not paid leave. You know what I mean? Or if they actually
Eastwood, in the movie Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood has one of the realest lines about killing a man that a screenwriter ever wrote. He says, when you kill a man, you take everything he's got, everything he's ever had, and everything he's ever gonna have, to kind of put the weight on the idea of what it is to take a man's life. And that's what was missing in that video. When your knee is on his neck for 8 minutes and the man is unresponsive for 2 of those minutes, at some point, that's why I don't agree with the 3rd-degree murder charge. It becomes 1st degree to me after minute number 2. After he is initially subdued and he is under control, from that point on now it's premeditated. From that point on now, you are making a conscious choice to do that. And so I don't really know what any of these results are. We do all this talking, or you can train them better, but we all know as Black people, and this is the urban legend that all Black people know is true, and that white people sometimes refuse to acknowledge, which infuriates me personally. And then these things happen and you point to them, you're like, look, see. But we all know that there is it's an infiltration that has happened. Like that white supremacists have infiltrated police departments around the country. That does not mean that all of the police departments, but there are purposefully placed 1, 2, 3 who are there. It's the same reason the Ku Klux Klan, who were those people in the daytime? Good portion of them were law enforcement officers. Mm-hmm. So it's not in this weird conspiracy theory to think that there are 3, 4, 5, 10 white supremacists who exist in police departments. And what do they exist there for? But is to live for these opportunities to enact this type of foolishness.
Now, there's been videos of cops during the protests throwing up white power signs. So it's like, you can continue to tell us that we're making this shit up. And that's the thing, like you said, it drives you crazy. Like, You keep telling me it's like 1984. You keep telling me what I'm seeing ain't real. Like, I'm seeing it. And there's court documents. There's investigations that have been done. They publish text messages of cops back and forth talking about they're gonna get an N-word tonight. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not fake. It's not make believe. Now, are we saying we don't know? Of course, we don't know how pervasive it is, but it is an element. And you want to talk about how one bad cop. Everyone want to talk about one bad cop, one bad apple, one bad apple, one bad apple. But all it takes is one bad apple to kill one of us. And then the problem is when they do, you don't do nothing about it. And the rest of y'all, quote unquote, good apples, don't say shit. Y'all sit there and fight for the man. The police union run out quick.
Boy, I tell you what, that police academy and that locker room in the police station, boy. It must rival any college locker room or whatever, because they are able to, the culture that they build in there of loyalty and silence, that blue wall that they discuss, that thing right there is real.
People the biggest gang in the country.
People with good morals and with good intent will go off in that place and hush their mouth for fear of breaking that confidence, you know.
Retaliation, everything, man.
Retaliation, everything. So let's go to the next our next thing that we wanted to discuss here is, do protests even work? Protesting worked in the civil rights era, but it worked because it was paired with economic pressures like boycotts and sit-ins. People forget that one of the main reasons why a sit-in was a powerful protest was because that place was losing their money for the whole day. Mm-hmm. You know, if I'm sitting in here and then you got people coming in, they mad at me, they pouring drinks on me and all that, what they ain't doing is buying your food. you understand what I mean? So we had protesting and we had the element of economic pressure alongside of it. All right. The Montgomery bus boycott lasted for months and it broke the back of the people. It is hard for us to boycott anything now because African Americans, like all Americans, are so entwined with capitalism. If anybody wanted us to boycott Target, I think we talked about this last show, it would be so hard for us to boycott Target. I mean, it would be hard for me. And I ride for all causes. But I like Goodfellow clothes and they're cheap. Even though you can't wash them but maybe 3 times.
You got 3 washes, but
you got 3 washes, but I mean you got 3 solid wears where somebody will be like, hey, you know, I'm sorry. But you know, we so intertwined in the economy ourselves now, it's hard for us to extract from that. So we kind of lose out on the economic pressure point. We still have the protesting, but we have protested and not seen anything happen. We have rioted and we have not seen anything happen. What do you all think? What is the value of all of it? And I have an idea on it, but I'm gonna let y'all go first.
Well, there's 2 issues, right? The protesting and the demonstrations in the 60s. And let's put it right here. All my white friends, all my conservative friends, even some of my black friends, stop invoking Martin Luther King every chance you get, trying to pacify black people, because you're skipping over all the other teachings of Dr. King and just going to peaceful protesting. He had a lot of other things he said that you're not going to like. Stop cherry picking his quotes and then throwing them up on social media, trying to pacify people. We're not trying to hear that shit right now. Thank you very much. This is not any of your concern. So the protests in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s, they were sustained movements that yielded results, right?
Right.
Are we capable? And then and now, if you really want to get into it, they were all destabilized by the government, by J. Edgar Hoover, by Ronald Reagan. Like, just the fabric of those communities that were rising up. When you talk about Watts and Oakland, they were pumped full of drugs and all these other things to destabilize those communities. So first of all, you took out the family structure. You took black fathers and threw them in jail. You turned black mothers into crackheads. It's a whole history of what has happened. So now let's go to present day. What can we do today? One thing I worry about with us, and I'm not talking, and this is not a millennial conversation, young people conversation, old people conversation. Do we have the ability to sustain these protests, or do the people in power know that we will lose interest after a few days? You understand what I'm saying? Because we do. And this is something we all have to take credit for. We all have to take responsibility for the fact that we are mad today. But
so I have something for you.
Come Wednesday, are we going to be this pissed off?
I have something for you. Lil Duval says that all the time. What y'all fake mad about today? Because we know that people's attentions are fleeting. So if I wanted to play devil's advocate in an argument with you or a debate, I could say then that what you are really saying, you're actually low-key advocating for riots and property damage. Because if we cannot sustain or maintain a sustained protest campaign, then you got to make them feel it as much as you possibly can.
It's got to be impactful.
I think it got to be impactful in the time that you have.
But
that
this
was
is why,
not saying that's my point, but that would be the devil's advocate counter argument to what you're saying.
I think this is why we need a leader, someone who is actually working. This is what they do for us. You know, that I feel like more than anything else, that's what Martin Luther King was. That's what Malcolm X was. You know, back in the late 90s, you know, Jesse Jackson took his run at it. Al Sharpton, you know, he kind of took his run at it. But really since, you know, 2000, there's been nobody who's like just leading the movement. Like I like people can't devote their time to. Go ahead.
Because I just want to, because you do something, you just did something a lot of people do that gets on my nerves sometimes.
Go ahead.
I feel like you can't put Al Sharpton up there with Jesse Jackson. I feel like if you did that and Jesse was around, Jesse might low-key hit you. Not a hard one, but just a little. Come on,
I mean, in the sense
Jesse got a lot of. I feel you though. I understand.
I get what you're saying. I'm not saying that he's the best representation of our leadership, but I'm just saying that he at least, for whatever his reasons and motives were for whenever he did this thing, but he was at least speaking on our issues. He was at least someone
he had a national platform to speak
he had a
Black
platform.
People.
He got in the rooms with people that made decisions. Lawmakers would, whether they wanted to or not, they would sit down and talk to him or at least listen to him. The president, they would sit down, and we have nobody that does that right now. You know, we have all these people that get angry and get mad, but nobody really takes the time. And let's figure out what we need to do. Let's talk to these politicians. Let's get in contact with these senators. But nobody.
You hitting on something that I've been thinking about and I've been planning on writing about. I'll go after you, Alf. But you're hitting on something and it tells me that I've been thinking about something correctly. But go ahead, Alf, which is what you're about to say.
I think there are those people out there, and I feel like we're just not listening. Like Ilhan Omar, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, like they have been talking. Bernie Sanders, all right. I know he's not a Black leader, but there's people out there who have been talking about these things for a long, long time, and like we just don't pay as a people. Like we just brush off AOC so much. We don't listen to Ilhan, what she's really trying to say when they talk about defunding police departments, when they talk about the injustices in the criminal justice system, when they talk about cash bail, when they're talking about all these things, these societal racisms that come to fruition whenever we have one of these big uproars and these big uprisings, right? All this stuff starts coming out to the forefront. And you have like Alexandria, I'm going to keep saying AOC because it's hard to say her full name. AOC will have a hearing on this shit 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us paid attention.
Well,
you understand what I'm saying?
And the reason why is because we don't, as strong as she is politically, and especially with the progressive whatever, she doesn't really connect with, with the Black audience. You feel me? I mentioned on our last show that ever since the quarantine happened, and they talking to different, cities, especially here in the South, and especially after George Floyd as well in Ahmaud Arbery, that I realized and I learned there are a lot of young Black politicians in the South, mayors of Montgomery, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, young, Keisha Lance Bottoms in Atlanta, FAMU alumni one time for the Rattlers. There are people who are working their way up through the process. But what I think, because Parrish is correct, but what I think we need is something different than just a politician. Because there's always, and that's what ended up hurting Jesse Jackson.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a politician.
I feel
in my mind, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah, I don't think it should be, because that's what hurt Jesse and that's what hurt Al Sharpton. Jesse Jackson, we kind of underplay him or whatever, but Jesse got a resume, cuz like Jesse's resume, I'm Jesse Jackson on the balcony when King got shot. I survived the livest around. That's the Nas lyric. Jesse Jackson was on that balcony. Jesse got work that he put in. Where his star diminished is when he ran. He was the first black man ran for office, lost. But once he transitioned into politics, it started to decline. Martin Luther King wasn't a politician, so the people who followed him did not have to worry, because if you are a politician, inevitably you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to make bedfellows, or you're going to end up like Bernie Sanders, which is you're going to be in office forever and you ain't never going to get nothing done because you don't have no allies, right?
Right.
So you know, and that's what. That's
why I don't think it necessarily should be a politician.
But what I think we need, and it's something that I've written about in my last 2 short stories. Shameless plug. If you on here, look me up on Amazon. But I'm writing about it because it's something I've been thinking about. What we need is, like, where is the NAACP right now? And we need a individual group of people whose entire whole job, just like Parrish said, is to look out for the needs of, and I'm sorry, anybody on this, because everybody want to be all inclusive, but y'all already got your groups. We need a group who looks out for people of African descent, the African diaspora, Caribbean, actual Africans, African Americans, Black people of the world. I'm sorry, Hispanic people, we love y'all. Y'all got a whole other situation that y'all got running on. Y'all got Mahente. Matter of fact, that's what the name of their group is.
You know, the thing is,
everybody got their stuff. We need our own group who, as a group, they can speak for us, and they're not politicians, but they understand the levers of government and how to manipulate them. That group has to be well funded, because you can't do nothing in politics if you ain't got millions of dollars. So all of these celebrities who on Instagram, millions upon millions of dollars. All these celebrities on Instagram, all of them, put your bread up, Puff. Put your bread up, Puff. Let's put 75. Let's put $100 million. Like Bloomberg wasted on his political campaign because he could do it. Let's put $100 million into a fund, and that the whole purpose of that, you know, gay people got GLAAD. Jewish people got the Jewish Anti-Defamation League. Restructure the NAACP. It already exists. We used to think that president of the NAACP was a big deal. Who even knows who that guy is right now? You feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I think needs to happen. I think there needs to be a giant solidifying of blackness in this country. And people don't like when I say it because it sounds separatist and it sounds whatever. But ain't nobody, all we got is us, cuz even the allies that we have will come and will go. The thing that will remain is us. You feel me? We gonna be black through it, no matter who come and go.
I feel like, to me, I know you guys aren't saying it needs to be a politician, but I feel like the way most of this shit happens is through legislation, and it's not just on a congressional or a presidential level, because we saw what happened when you had a black president, a black attorney general. I mean, you had black people throughout the administration, and not a lot changed. Like, we were having police killings back then, and then Obama and I can't remember the attorney general, Eric Holder. They did put some things in place.
They put a lot of things in place
for the police to for people to police the police, right? All that stuff, and I don't know if anybody's realized this, all that stuff has been stripped away by the Trump administration.
Trump administration and Jeff Sessions got rid of it.
They stripped
first 100 days in office.
And it's funny, the Minneapolis police chief actually was at a MAGA rally, I don't know, a couple years ago, saying thank you to Donald Trump for taking the handcuffs off the police that Obama put on. So now you took the handcuffs off the police and now they're killing again. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of this stuff has to happen through legislation, because it's so hard to get everybody on one page.
But I don't got to be a politician to pass legislation. You know what you need to pass legislation? You need money. You
need a movement. And you need a movement.
And you need a politician who you can get on your side through what? Money. So you got to donate some bread to somebody, AOC, whoever you want to do. Donate some money to them. Y'all write this bill up, whatever the particular bill is, and then we got the money to push this bill through television ads, through and all of that stuff. We have to not just talk about this stuff, because the way things change in America, we all notice, is there's always games to be played, games that exist, games that have players, games that have rules. And politics is that type of game, which is why Martin Luther King and everyone to get in it. People don't talk about Martin Luther King elevated so high that he had one-on-one meetings with the president. And one-on-one, when Pete talking about somebody who can get in the door, Martin Luther King was in the door.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm
saying. He was
like,
in the door.
We got Kanye though. We got Kanye.
Yeah,
and that's what we got. And we also got a president who, if you sent God himself dressed as a black man, it wouldn't do nothing. Nothing wouldn't happen. You know what I'm saying? So that's just I feel like we need that. I feel like you can have politicians who you're aligned with, but the minute that you put it in the hands of a politician, you put it in the hands of somebody who's also going to be reliant on his donor patrons. You know what I'm saying?
And then, but more to when I'm talking about politics and politicians, I'm talking about even more so on the local level. Like you talk about the mayor of Atlanta, she fired 2 police officers yesterday who was acting out of pocket during a demonstration. But then you have Mayor de Blasio in New York, who is a Democrat. So let's stop pretending that there's this huge demarcation between the two parties. So you have de Blasio, who's a Democrat, praising the NYPD's restraint after a video of them driving an SUV into a crowd of people for no good reason. Like, where do you have to go so bad? He had some dry cleaning to pick up. Like, it didn't make no sense. Like, why you had to go that way? Like, why couldn't you de-escalate and turn the other way? So you have that mayor praising his police force because he's so afraid of what happens if he crosses that police union.
Yes, and that police union is what I am basically talking about. That those police who putting their knees on people's neck and hitting people with bikes and all that stuff, they got a union that stands behind them that says we got the money and we got the leverage to make stuff happen for you. I'm saying we need the black person equivalent of that. Everybody else got that. You know what I'm saying?
But it's not just the black person equivalent of that. Like, if you look at what just Skinny McGee just said, our boy Slim, he said and this is one of the things I was talking about earlier, and we were talking about some of this stuff. It's about defunding some of these police departments, defunding some of these police unions. Like, listen, you run off and kill somebody, we take away, or even if you just there's too many complaints against you, we take away your pension, we take away this actual consequences outside of just the normal, we're not even going to put you in jail shit. Like, it has to be economic. Like, whatever we have to do to take away from, like, I'm looking at right now for downtown Fort Lauderdale, they tear gas and they got tanks in the streets. Right? What are we? Like, what have we become? Like, these police departments have, like, you see them, they're geared up like they're in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. You're in downtown Fort Lauderdale. It's a white guy with a skateboard. Like,
but there is something in America. I don't know what it is. I mean, I like guns. I'm sorry, I do. I like guns. But America has a thing with guns and military. A lot of the dudes who are white supremacists are also in paramilitary groups, and they are the Second Amendment guys scream, "Hey, I need this AR-15 because I might have to fight against the government one day." It seems to me as if a lot of the police department has that same thinking of, we need all of this because one day we might have to have a full-fledged incursion into another county. Or we might have to,
like Palm Beach and Broward might just go to war one day. But
one day all the Second Amendment dudes might stand up with the AR-15s, and so I gotta have this armored personnel carrier with a giant 50 cal on top.
This is a weird I'm trying to think, a weird comparison, right? But as a restaurant manager, I had a district manager that would tell me, don't overstock your shelves with products and supplies, because if your employees see all that, they're gonna think, well, it's not a big deal, I can waste. You know what I'm saying? Like, they couldn't wait to get to that next sleeve of cups because there's so many cups, right? Now you put all this shit in the police department. These dudes can't wait to break out these toys, right? They've been waiting for. They're like, oh, I can't wait for a riot in downtown Fort Lauderdale. We're gonna bring out all the tanks, all the tactical gear. This tear gas been sitting here going bad, my dude. Like we about to fire this thing off. These rubber bullets. You ever seen these shit? Pop, pop. It ain't a big deal. Bro, they take it out motherfuckers' eyes.
They be in the back,
people
like,
losing limbs.
Y'all in the locker room, like, bro. I just promise. Last riot, I caught a guy square in the head with a rubber bullet right here, cuz right here.
And
watch
like
the next riot. I'll show you on the next riot. Watch, I'm gonna show you.
And like it's rubber, so it's not gonna hurt nobody. Ping, 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 ping. Like, you know.
Did you see the video in Minneapolis with the armored police carrying on stuff rolling down the street? The people outside on their porch, white people. They're like, yo, go inside. They standing out there because they white. You know, white people don't be listening to the police like that. They're like, go inside. They standing out there filming. But he said, light them up. And they start shooting rubber bullets out their foot. Poof, poof. I'm like, woo.
They were shooting reporters, man. Y'all saw that? They were shooting reporters.
Yeah,
they shooting reporters, shooting everybody.
Ali Vesci got popped in his leg with an old rubber bullet. I said, oh,
but like but that's what I'm telling you. You keep, and this is what when we talk about defunding and just basically like going back to actual community policing and not a militarized force put in a neighborhood. A lot of times that's actually not even representative of the people who live in those neighborhoods to enforce laws upon them. Like it's no longer become about protecting the people.
It's about occupation.
It's an occupation of a neighborhood. Like you see it all the time in like Brooklyn and different places like that, where the cops are just they're worse than the gangs, right? And it's like, that's why when we say F the police, we're not talking about every single police officer. But if you are sitting there just doing nothing about it, like F you too. You know what I'm saying? If you know that man that used to ride in the car with you and you asked for a transfer to another partner was a racist, but all you did was ask for a transfer instead of getting rid of him or going to, but the problem is then he's going to get put out. So it's all systemic. It's the whole profession has just been
one way that you deal with systemic issues is you try to put checks and balances within the system. Does it work? In some cases, yes, some cases not. One of the things that the Obama Holder Justice Department that they implemented for all of this was those citizen review boards. And I think that's something that could work, is if you had a citizen review board that who had the job, in the power to not just recommend, but by vote per se, to vote, say, hey, look, this officer has to be removed.
They have to have more power than the police union.
They have to have more, yes. And that's where your issue is going to come in. But what I don't understand about that part, Republicans are very anti-union. Republicans can't stand the teachers union, of which I'm a part of. Cannot stand it. Republicans hate all unions. Oh, they drive up prices, about all this kind of stuff here. They don't like any police union, but they don't like any other union, but they, I guess, don't have a problem with the police union.
Nope.
And all the police union does is make it harder for police to be held accountable, which I don't believe is the job of a union. Like the teachers union isn't out here trying to make sure that teachers are held less accountable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not what the job of a union is.
Like, so what you have to do, and another part of the problem that we talk about all the time is, so who's holding them accountable? You want a civilian review board, but it has to be more powerful than police union, or you want to talk to district attorneys, prosecutors. But they need to hold them accountable, but they need the police so badly to do their jobs, to get their convictions, to get their numbers up, so they can get the next best job. That they do not want to cross. Like that's what they're so intertwined. The justice system is throwing black men in jail and brown people and people in general in jail at an unprecedented rate. Like they are having a bang up year. They're year over year double digits. Like, you know what I mean? So, but they need the police for that to happen. So they don't want to cross the police. So when you try and convict a police officer, now you don't have the police having your back, and you can't do your job as a district attorney. So it has to be separated. They're too intertwined. You can't. They're the police of themselves, and it's never going to work that way.
It's never going to work that way. I want to take a brief detour quick. I saw a comment pop up I can't see it now. I don't know if maybe you can see it. That asks, is this happening in just America or is it happening all over the world? Yeah. Is this something that's only in America or is there mere Black English or French or wherever having these issues? Yes, it's this happening all over the world.
Everywhere.
Just before all of this happened, there was an African soccer player, and God forgive me, I can't remember dude's name, but he plays in Italy, and the racism over there is being called all type of names. He put a post up on Instagram. He was saying, "Look, all African footballers in Europe right now, because the racism is so crazy bad. Let's all take our money. Let's go back to Africa and start our own league in Africa because we shouldn't have to deal with this." So racism exists everywhere. I'm not quite sure. The only people who I think feel the pain of Black people, and this is why we do have a nice relationship with these folks, are Jewish folks. Jewish people and Black people are like the only people who I know, I think, who are just hated everywhere around the world.
Well, Muslims.
Well, Muslims ain't really Muslims.
Not everywhere, but in Europe, they have a lot of trouble. In Europe, places like Canada, where you like everyone acts like Canada. There's nothing like Canada is just utopia. Like there's a lot of issues with Muslims in Canada. Places like Norway, where you think that they act like it's a utopia. There's a lot of issues.
There's racism everywhere, man.
There's racism everywhere, and where there is racism, because this is the gist of the question, where there is racism, you're always going to have heavy-handed policing in certain areas. If you ever watch the show Top Boy on England, you'll see it. It happens in the United Kingdom to the Black people who live in England. It happens in France. France be having protests all the time about various social things and whatever, not necessarily on the race aspect of it. But we know that in France expects you to fully assimilate. And so anybody who doesn't be French, if you are, there is no like Afro French. We got like African American. If you're not fully like French, they give you some hell for it over there. So racism is everywhere, and then it leads to this problem everywhere. And that brings us to I think one of our closing topic here. In this kind of the way I started the show a little bit, I never would have thought, and I find myself sometimes feeling so naive and so guilty. But I'm going to be 40 years old this year. And I've been old, boy, old. and you right there with me, nigga. So.
Next year.
So
I got like 3 months on you.
But I never thought that. I kind of looked at the civil rights movement and everything that happened, not like it was a finished story, because I've been acquainted with racism from a very, 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 very long time. Like some of my first memories for various reasons. And I kind of thought we were getting to a place, not where the problem was fixed, but what I see now is, I mean, this is still, and that person's comment is what triggered me is that we are still generations and generations and generations away from a world, not even in America, but for a world where people are genuinely see past these divisions, where I understand, because I don't want to say colorblind, because I need you to see my color and my culture, but
embrace
it. But you do not see me through the lenses of bias and prejudice, and we are still generations and generations away from that, and that part is a little discouraging for me, because it makes me feel as if I won't see it in my lifetime, and maybe my kids won't see it in their lifetime.
Well, one thing I will say that it was encouraging about these protests is when you saw them on TV, and even when they turned violent, like there was a lot of white people out there. There were a lot of Hispanic people out there. Those groups, especially when they were peaceful, up and down, there was times that I'm watching protests and demonstrations, and it was mostly white people.
You're seeing that a lot,
right? And it's a lot of young people, and that's what gives me hope.
White people are high also right now. Even Dave Matthews stopped his concert and was like, "Hey, this is fucked up, messed up, guys."
The flip side of that coin is also a lot of white people out there busting shit up, though.
Yeah, but that's a whole nother thing.
I see a lot of little dudes on skateboards out there busting shit up.
But listen, they're angry, and it's all symptoms of the same disease. And some of them are radically left, and some of them are radically right. Like, we need to stop acting like this whole Antifa fucking nonsense that Trump is pushing. Like, we got to remember that the radical right, a lot of those militias, they are armed to the teeth against the police as well. So they take these opportunities to jump on our causes so they can go raise. First of all, they want to make us look bad, and then second of all, they would love to get their hands on a cop because they don't like police. That's a whole nother discussion. I'm just talking about. I'm trying to be positive. You set me down a rabbit hole, but a lot of the young people you see, and I spend a lot of time on Twitter, and Twitter is not exactly my age demographic. Like, I'm the old dude.
Not exactly, huh?
I'm the old dude on Twitter, and now they got TikTok and all.
I can't tell.
Yeah. But anyway, I see the young.
I bet them girls on Twitter in your demographic,
Chill out. I got family watching. Chill out.
Well, that family that's watching that boy be on that Twitter. Like,
hey, anyway. So, but what I do say is, like, there's a lot of when you look at the younger generation, it seems like there's a lot more unity, and they are looking at this bullshit going on, and they are a lot more in tune to it. And I think it's because they see they're the economic inequality that they see for themselves coming out of college or going into college, and they look at their future, and they look at the fact that their older brothers and sisters who are 27, 28 years old can't get out their mama's house because everything's too expensive and there's not enough money to go around. All this stuff has led to a basically an awakening that shit is fucked up. And if shit is fucked up, you're going to look at all the different things that are fucked up. Economic inequality. You're going to look at cash bail. You're going to look at all these different things and just start to realize that America as a society has so many things that are wrong with it that hopefully they can decide, hey, let's come together and figure this shit out.
I just learned something about the progressive movement that I did not realize before. Y'all boys is optimistic, cuz y'all boys is optimistic. I don't mean to be negative, Ned, son. You know what I'm saying? But one thing my pops told me, he said, like all of these young people now who are riled up, you gotta get them. And to your point, maybe we got them. You gotta get them before they hit their 30s. Because the reality of America is everybody's left just about in their 20s. Everybody is. It's when you get in your 30s, especially white mainstream 30s, and you buy your first house and you start having kids. Now your social circle changes. Now you got a country club or a golf club or a sewing circle or whoever your main group of people is. So some of your views now start to blend with those people's views. I ain't want to, because everybody ain't got country clubs. I don't want to put that stereotype out there. But the point being that, and we all know it, and there's even an old saying that says, if you're not left before your 30s, then you're a weirdo. And if you're not right by the time you in your 40s, then you must have not had nothing. You must be broke. You must not own anything. You know what I'm saying? So that's what makes me negative about that. Yeah, they out here championing it and all right now. But are you going to be here 10 years from now? Are you going to be here 20 years from now? That's why I say our allies going to come and go. You could be an ally for a strong 6 months. Then you get your first job at Goldman Sachs and start wearing suits. And a lot of that, they'll go out the door. You see me? So, I mean, your allies going to come and going to go. But the one thing that's going to be through all of this is going to be us, is black people. So I'm not too much here looking for the help of allies or all of that. I appreciate it. Thank you. Come with good intentions. One time for that. But if we rely on that, then we'll be up shit.
I will never say to fully rely on it, but if we ever think that as 18% of this country that we're going to change things without,
we 18% of the country, but we got like 40% of the buying power. We 18% of the country, but we generate so much economic input. What we have not done is harness that. Mm-hmm. If you take, do you know why I'm also not mad about black people running off in Gucci and Louis? Is because Gucci and Louis would be dusty ass antique brands if it was not for black people. White people ain't out here buying Louis and Gucci, world. They not. White people ain't out here buying Alexander McQueen, who is basically pop art as fashion. They're not wearing Alexander McQueen in Boca Town Center Mall. You know what I mean? That's not what's happening. We built those brands because our economic power in this country is impactful. We've talked about it on this show. Our cultural influence is impactful. All of those things mean, and that's where my optimism does come. Because for us to be 18% of the population, we sure got our outsized influence on this motherfucker. We got the whole world on fire right now. 18%.
Black women made Target more fashionable.
Black women changed the election in Alabama. Got your old crazy buddy up out of there. Black women you got Roy Moore up out of there. Black women helped turn the race for Joe Biden in South Carolina. For our 18%, black people sent Bernie Sanders back to his house.
That's true.
You get what I'm saying?
We probably shouldn't have. That's a whole nother conversation. I'm looking around right now like, damn, we should have let Bernie ride out.
Joe, all right, because guess what I feel about Joe, and what I feel about him when I saw him on Charlemagne. Joe knows. Joe ain't no fool. Joe knows. If Charlemagne would have said, Joe Biden, I think you might have to go ahead and try to rap Biggie's "It Was All a Dream" for me right now, for black people to get these votes, Joe would have been on that motherfucker. It was all a dream. Baby. I used to read, what is it? Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper, Heavy D. Shit, Joe know the game, and that's fine by me. Go ahead and tap dance, Joe. It's your turn.
Joe knows who pays his bills. Basically, Joe knows who got him in the White House. Like, there's a bunch of what's the congressman's name from South Carolina?
Jim Clyburn.
Jim Clyburn. He knows he owes him a debt of gratitude. Now the thing is, what's Jim Clyburn's agenda? Is he gonna push forward a progressive agenda? That's the other thing.
No. I've been trying to tell you this from the beginning.
Black politicians
black people don't want black people ain't worried about no progressive agenda because that stuff is pie in the sky. We've been out here riding the waves of trouble and toil for all of these years, and we ain't do it for somebody to come out here and to pitch a big old dream of something like the Green New Deal that we know ain't gonna get passed. We ain't got no time to put no hope in whatever you got going on. But what we will do is we will learn how to work in the world that we live in, which is what we have done in all this time from civil rights. And that's what fools white America sometimes, I believe. In the 60, 70 years from civil rights, we've risen a lot. That can also be worrisome because imagine what it'll look like in 100 years, in 200 years. In that amount of time, we have created billionaires, millionaires. We've created whole industries. We have taken over whole industries. We have had major input in the way that this country makes money, in the way that this country presents itself to the world. They sell Sprite all over the world with hip hop music. Like we are America. You understand?
That's all well and good, but all that has led to what when it comes to
this is what I'm saying. What we need is a group of people who understand how to leverage that and who go into politics and they be like, look, whether you're progressive or not. Now I'm not saying I'm not progressive. Yeah. If you pass the Green New Deal, hell yeah. I want all of my homeboys down here in Dania and Hollandale and all them putting solar panels up on everybody's house. I'm for it. But what I'm not gonna do is put all my hopes and dreams in it. Because black folks go ahead.
You don't have to put all your hopes and dreams in it. But if we continue to pursue the same agenda we've pursued over the last 50 years, where has it gotten us?
That's a valid point.
It's gotten us some billionaires. Like, okay, great. Kanye got money. Diddy got money. Jay-Z got money. Now all it means is now there's income inequality in the black community. Like that's all that means. That's all. Inequality that's fucking with everybody else, just fucking with us. Like that's that thing. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like you want to keep You want to keep the status quo? Go ahead. Like, just keep the status quo. And
no.
And we're gonna keep protesting. We're gonna keep running off in Target.
I should not say that I want the status quo.
We're gonna get a TV for our troubles.
What I should say is not the status quo, but I'm gonna bring his name up again because I think the young brother. Here's one for you, P, who might be a leader. You know what I'm saying? Charlemagne has been pushing it a lot. Is economic reparations. That would be progressive. That's the progressive agenda for me.
Yeah, but that economic
ain't well, it ain't coming from Joe Biden
or any of them establishment Democrats. So,
okay, but that's a valid point. But that's something that to me would be progressive. Before I'm worried about the Green New Deal, I'm worried about economic reparations, and I'm talking about things not just giving, because you ain't never gonna get America to just give you money. Wink, wink. Unless there's a quarantine, apparently. But what I'm talking about is just that. Small business loans. Give us a pass on them. You know what I'm saying?
Chris, all that
wipe 10 years off people credit reports.
But a lot of this Green New Deal is directed towards communities of color and poor. That's like we just label a Green New Deal and call it a progressive piece of legislation. We don't actually look at it and look at the fact that it targets communities of color.
It does. But those things always.
Yeah, but maybe it's too broad. But it's addressing what you're asking for.
Not really, because what's going to end up happening when I worked at the newspapers. Here's what's going to end up happening. You're going to pass the Green New Deal. Fantastic, right? Great. The way that's going to impact minorities, they're going to end up being subcontractors. And everybody's like, oh, subcontractors. But what that is not, is you're not the guy who's making a decision, who's with the guy who's getting the money paid out. Okay. What you are is the guy who's getting paid, and then he breaking you off a piece to go do a piece of his work. And that's sharecropping of work. And every big project, that's what happened when they tried to rebuild Systrom. That's what happened whenever they bring stuff and they're like, hey, we need minority help. We need minority builders. Then you go in, you go through all your paperwork, you put all your stuff, and they're like, fantastic, you'll be a subcontractor. You and all your people will cut the grass on the medians while we build the fucking buildings. That's what I mean. So that's why I'm saying again, like what Paris said, we need a group who, if you're going to do that, we need a group who says, okay, well, then you need to give us or somebody regulatory control. I need to come in there and I need to see. And who's passing the money out? Where is it going?
That's two different. You're talking about two different things. There's the community action that you're talking about, and then there's also political action. And that's what I think we're just talking about two sides of the same coin. And one is not going to work without the other. And I think we all agree on that. Like, you can't pass legislation without oversight. And if the oversight isn't from us or people that look like us or care about us, nothing's gonna matter, because they pass all the stimulus shit, and who got it? Minority-owned businesses didn't even have access to a lot of this shit. You know what I'm saying? So, and we're not even just talking about just black, Hispanic. All these different businesses had no access to this money, and who got it? Why? Because the people that are doling out
Vince McMahon got it.
Vince McMahon, they don't look like us. So my thing is, even you want to put all the power, you want to put pressure on these people in power, that's fine. But the people in power also got to have our best interest in heart as well. And it can't just be for votes. It also has to be because they look like us and come from our communities. And that's all I'm saying. And they have their agenda matches what we actually want to see. And now it's not for just James Clyburn to sit off in that office for decades, right? And just consolidate and hold his power. Like, James Clyburn worried about James Clyburn. I don't know how much James Clyburn is worried about my kids. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
So you suspect of James Clyburn, but you all in with AOC.
I'm a and all those establishment Democrats, I'm suspect of all of them, man. All of them. And I keep voting for them if I have to, but just give me a better choice. You know what I'm saying? That's all I ask for. Give me a better choice.
Straight up.
The Ilhan Omars of the world, I'll ride with them before I ride with James Clyburn. And I respect James Clyburn for what he's done, but you know what I'm saying? Your time has passed, brother. You know?
I got love for the OG, though.
I got love for OGs, but they don't have my best interest in mind at all the time.
So we're like 8 minutes over our hour here. If you've made it this far, then boy, we really do fuck with you, cuz like Appreciate you, cuz.
Episode. Listen, man, we appreciate all of you. We appreciate the fact that we got a really great response when I said, you know what? Because we do these podcasts and, you know, Paris takes a week to put them out. It's not relevant.
It's relevant.
Paris, you see how he throwing? You see how he throwing a little shot at you,
like 5 days. It'd be like 5 days.
Yeah, listen, all news happens in those 5 days. But anyway, no, just we love all you guys who listen to the podcast. Thank you for all the feedback we got when I said, okay, we might do a live show, and people were reaching out to me like, yes, please. Like, there's a lot of people, and it wasn't black people as much as it was white and Hispanic friends of mine and people just who follow me on Twitter who want to hear a black conversation about this. And if they don't want to hear pundits, they don't want to hear political leaders. They want to hear three regular ass dudes talking about this shit. And that's what we are. Like, none of us had the fucking answers. Chris is a teacher. Parrish is a production person.
Audio engineer.
I'm a fucking black beauty supply salesman and a Miami Heat podcast host. Like, we're just regular ass dudes, but these are the conversations that we have. Like, if the camera wasn't on, it'd be the same conversation and just be more cussing.
Hey, P, do you see the irony that this boy Alf, look at him now, look at him in his little box. He is a black beauty salesman.
You're so shiny.
You sell beauty supply?
Do you use them?
One of us look fresh out the three of us. That's all I'm gonna say. One of us out here looking fresh and still has hair. So one of us back for the growth, and someone else isn't. So
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. You be having your little mohawks and your little Sonic the Hedgehog parts. You know, I'll give you that.
I know you ain't over there like an empty pillowcase talking shit. But anyway.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we usually try to end the show on a joke. If you've never listened to our podcast, we don't always hit it. But so this time we want to actually give y'all a real ending. We, like Alf was saying, we appreciate y'all coming through. People are telling us that stuff is going on right now on CNN. And we thank y'all for joining us. We hope you continue to support the podcast and, you know, look us up on our individual social medias, and you'll be able to find us and, you know, share your thoughts. Alf got like 5 podcasts. You know, y'all know him because a lot of y'all probably here for Alf. Check his podcast out, support him, share. You know, share what you find about LSO, because we want to be low key. We would like to be able to have a voice in these type of conversations, to be able to add something to the culture and to the community. You know what I'm saying? So it's been fun. Y'all boys want to have a last final word and all that?
I kind of said my piece. Go ahead, Parrish. Take us out. Take us out.
I'm cool, man. This is some justice, man. I just want to see some justice. That more than anything else, I understand people are gonna die. Like, people are gonna make mistakes, whether it's malicious or accidental. But, you know, I just want some justice, man. That's all I want to see. Consequences for people's actions. So that's it. And then tear some shit up if you have to.
Hey, I think and on that note, tear some shit up if you have to. That should be the name of this.
All right, y'all.
All right.